Good evening and welcome back to another episode of Please Call Me Crazy, brought to you by Free People Radio and now powered by our first sponsor, TireGet.com. That's TireGet.com. You all have to buy tires from somebody. You might as well buy them from us and help fund the movement, help support the movement. We believe in the freedom of movement, and that's exactly what the establishment wants to take from you now. I'm your host, Royce White, here in the belly of the beast, Minneapolis, Minnesota, for episode number 48. And we're going to get straight into it because we got short time today. I'm only going to go for about 60 minutes. So we're off and running. A little bit shorter today. I got some pressing matters, but I want to get right into the shit this evening. Elon Musk, capitalism, corporatocracy, crony capitalism, morals, ethics, values, sacred honor. Sacred honor. What is sacred honor? Sacred honor, the morals, the ethics, the values that that you live by, you're willing to fight for, and if need be, die for. That's sacred honor. And we have a crisis of sacred honor. We have a crisis of leadership. And we have a crisis of faith. But I want to show you a clip from Elon Musk that I came across that speaks to the culture here in America, and not even just the culture. It speaks to the cultural expectation. I mean, we have a real cultural expectation that has been um, embedded through the rise of America, economically, militarily, politically, and otherwise. And I'm gonna play you the clip, and then we'll talk about it. Let's roll that clip. This is from CNBC.
But how do you make a choice? You don't see, I mean, in terms of when you're going to engage. I mean, for example, even today, Elon, you tweeted this thing about George Soros. Well, I'm looking for it because I want to make sure I quote it properly. But, I mean, you know what you wrote. But you basically...
I said it reminds me of Magneto. It's just like, calm down, people. This is not like made a federal case out of it.
You also... you said he wants to erode the very fabric of civilization, and Soros hates humanity. Like, when you do something like that, do you
I think that's true. That's my opinion.
Okay, but why share it? Why share it? Especially, why share it when people who buy Teslas may not agree with you, advertisers on Twitter may not agree with you? Why not just say, hey, I think this. You can tell me. We can talk about it over there. You can tell your friends. But why share it widely?
I mean, this is freedom of speech. I'm allowed to say what I want.
You absolutely are. But I'm trying to understand why you do, because you have to know it's got a... It puts you in the middle of the partisan divide in the country. It makes you a lightning rod for criticism. I mean, do you like that? People today saying he's an anti-Semite. I don't think you are.
No, I'm definitely. I'm like a pro-Semite, if anything.
I believe that probably is the case.
Yes.
But why would you even introduce the idea then that would be the case?
I mean, look, we don't want to make this a George Soros interview.
No, God, no. I don't want to at all. But what I'm trying, even came up though in the annual meeting. I mean, do your tweets hurt the company? Are there Tesla owners who say, I don't agree with his political position because, and I know it because he shares so much of it? Or are there advertisers on Twitter that Linda Yaccarino will come and say, you got to stop, man. Or, I can't get these ads because of some of the things you tweet.
I'm reminded of there's a scene in The Princess Bride. Great movie.
Great movie.
Where he confronts the person who killed his father. And he says, offer me money. Offer me power. I don't care.
So you just don't care. You want to share what you have to say.
I'll say what I want to say, and if the consequence of that is losing money, so be it.
Okay.
Wow. Chilling. Powerful moment there from Elon Musk. Now, I want to say this first about Elon Musk. I don't trust him. That's just me. And we have to be vigilant, diligent enough to acknowledge when people say things that have value, they say things that are true, say things that are factually correct, say things that are profound, insightful, without giving over to them in this sort of weird, cuck, idolatrous kind of way. And many people can't help but do that. And that's not by accident. The entire culture that we've built is meant to yield that result, where you have to be all for the entire mainstream media liberal, the liberal mainstream media industrial complex, or you have to be all for Elon Musk. And I'm certainly not for the first, but also not for the latter. Um, I can't presume to know what Elon Musk is involved with. I mean, at that level, who could know what Elon Musk is involved with, really? I mean, just the stuff he's involved with on paper is spooky enough. I mean, what kind of guy? The only type of guy who gets access to the world's two nuclear superpowers, or the world's two economic superpowers, both China and America, through federal grants, and is providing EV vehicles, Teslas, to both governments at that scale, is somebody who is literally working for the government. I mean, his interests are aligned with the government, two governments. And the way things look on paper right now, that presumes a world government, because the road to world governance runs through America and leads to China, or vice versa. So I'm not saying we should trust Elon Musk. I certainly don't trust Elon Musk. I think he's a government asset. And I think the level of government he's at is much, much deeper than the WWE politics they show you on television, or anywhere where you can view politicians these days, mainstream politicians. But let's deal with the content of what he said in this clip. Because the content of what he said in this clip has a redeeming quality for Elon Musk, I think. And if there is a redeeming quality out there that I hope he can encounter, I'm not one to preclude miracles. Elon Musk could be the most um, corrupt, wicked, in on it player in the whole game, yet and still, the Holy Spirit could reach out and touch and use Elon Musk and eventually bring him in to love God and God's grace, and to give you some scriptural reminder of that possibility in the Bible, when Pharaoh is overtaken by the Red Sea that was parted so that Moses and the Hebrews could flee the captivity of Pharaoh and Egypt. It was said that the archangel Gabriel, that Pharaoh was under tons of water, right? He was at the bottom of the sea, and that the archangel Gabriel bragged to the other angels that in his final moments, Gabriel kicked dirt into Pharaoh's mouth out of the fear that in his last moments he would repent and God would forgive him. That's the God that Gabriel knew personally, right? And if you don't really understand um, angelology, I would encourage you to go follow some real Catholic theologians, because I think Catholicism has done the best to outline angelology, talk about the choirs of angels, and thus bring you into a better understanding and context of divine beings, divine spiritual beings, and demon, and eventually it will help you understand demons, the demonic. If you understand the choirs of angels and their powers, because then you can understand Satan and his power. But it was believed by Gabriel that God was so forgiving, he needed to intervene and kick dirt into Pharaoh's mouth to prevent him from repenting in his final moments at the bottom of the sea, out of fear that God would forgive him with all the heinous crimes that he's done. With that in mind, we should not preclude miracles from people who we do not trust. That does not mean that we should leave ourselves susceptible to become victims of their wickedness. But we certainly, at least from afar, and I don't know Elon Musk personally, never met him, never been involved with him, other than through the zeitgeist of public commentary on certain issues, primarily political, but also cultural and social and whatnot. Um, I don't know him, so his who he is doesn't have a firsthand effect. Firsthand doesn't come to bear firsthand in my life. So, as a spectator from afar, I'm certainly not willing to preclude miracles on behalf of Elon Musk and his journey or path. And with that being said, I got to take what he said. With that being said, I have to take what he laid out in this clip for what it is. And let's talk about what it is. I thought it was powerful. I thought it was profound. Because what he's really saying is, what is your price? We live in a country, we live in a nation, we live in a culture, a radical materialist culture, a Marxist culture. And people go, what do you mean Marx? Marx is trying to get materials to people that don't have it. No, that's a psyop. That's manipulation. That's deceit. Karl Marx is trying to reduce the human existence down to price. Karl Marx was trying to create the parameters of the human worldview that all there is price. There is nothing but price. That one, price is fake, price is arbitrary, and that way your aristocratic leaders can eventually overthrow other aristocratic leaders and reset the price based on some cultural narrative. And then ultimately, all there is price. Price is fictitious. It's a social construct when the current elites are in charge of the price. But if the Karl Marxes of the world, the Marxists and the communists, if they get to set the price, it's no longer corrupt. Right? Price is only corrupt if those who we don't like get to set the price. But if we get to set the price, it's fine. Chinese Communist Party, another perfect example. In fact, they are the pipe dream. No, they're not a pipe dream. They are the realization of Marxist and communist dream. They've taken the entire circumstance of a global economic a global economic landscape, and they've cornered the market on production, manufacturing for the entire global population. And now they, by way of, get to set the price. As long as everybody wants to participate in the rules of that economic game, they get to set the price. The Chinese set the price. Well, really, the Chinese don't set the price. Really, the people who set the price is everybody who sublet all their manufacturing to the Chinese, right? And therein lies the real scam, but I digress. The point I want to make here is, when did the Democrats, when did the liberals, when did the people who are supposed to speak on behalf of the people become so flippant about sacred honor? When did they become so flippant towards individuals who want to speak their mind freely, regardless of the consequences in their material life? When did we stop looking at the Martin Luther Kings and Muhammad Ali's and the Malcolm X's and all these other great leaders in our history for that singular quality, that they were willing to sacrifice what many wouldn't sacrifice in their shoes in order to achieve some type of higher purpose, some type of higher ethics, some type of higher moral understanding? When did these people become so anti-truth? I mean, what this man basically suggested in so many words is, okay, you may believe what you believe about George Soros, but why would you say it? Why would you ever fix your mouth to say it in public? Why would you share that? It's almost as if we've created this implicit cultural expectation that anything you may say which would offend the powers that be, or even the masses who you rely upon for consumer rapport, I guess. I don't know, brandability, um, commercial results, profit. I mean, just come right out and say it, CNBC. You should never say anything that would affect the profit. I mean, he all but said it. He said the shareholders. I mean, imagine the audacity. Imagine the crisis of integrity in journalism. Imagine the crisis of integrity in our academic institutions when the people who come from our academic institutions make their way into our journalism or news media institutions. Imagine the crisis of integrity when a man has the audacity to say on live television in front of the entire world, think about the shareholders. Elon, are you thinking about the shareholders? Are you thinking about the stock price? Are you thinking about the profit before you speak? To go back to Monday's show about Stephen A. Smith, they are the same guy. You understand what I was saying now, Tanner, about on Monday? The Stephen A. Smiths who say, I wake up in the morning, I have one thing on my mind, how to make my boss money and how to get some of it. Those people sold the country out. They sold the country out, and that wasn't even their primary goal. They just sold themselves out. And Satan made it easy for people to sell themselves out, right? Sell your soul. And once you sell yourself out, it's easy to sell the country out. I mean, why would I care about the country? My own individual, my own personal soul was given away. The country's an afterthought. God, family, country. I sold myself out. If you're fortunate enough to have a family, I sell my family out when I sell myself out, and I sell my country out when I sell myself out. These are the same guy. George Soros, he may actually despise humanity, but why would you say it? And is it by accident? Do you think it's by accident that anti-Semitic comes up in that description, in that whole worldview? I mean, it's just not by accident. It's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that they use the very group of people who were originally who were in the original covenant with God in their attempts to try and erase God from society, erase God from culture. Of course they would use the Jews. Of course they would use the Jews. The Jews are number one on the list as a tool to break God out of society. The whole goal in using the Jews, whether it was from World War II or now, when you talk about anti-Semitism, the whole goal is to undo the covenant between God and Abraham. And so you can't say George Soros is a danger to humanity, that he hates humanity. You can't say that, or else you're anti-Semitic. Anybody who claims to be Jewish, first of all, you guys have way too much confidence in this 23andMe genealogy shit, right? I mean, anybody could just claim to be Jewish, or I don't even know how you guys are trying to accurately determine who's a Jew and who isn't. You're just letting anybody say that they were a Jew, that they're a Jew. This is what I mean. The whole classification, even by people's standards, who often classify demographics to people, the classification is shoddy. How do you prove it? It was the Nazis who first tried to go walk through Germany and have their own arbitrary standard of identifying who was a Jew and who isn't. That's the dangerous things that's the dangerous thing for Jews, is for people to be able to just loosely define it, to loosely claim it. Because when you make it easy to claim it, when you make it when you make it loose to claim it, you'll also make it loose to define it when people want to come round you up. The door swings both ways. The pendulum swings both ways. So you can't say George Soros is a bad guy or you're anti-Semitic. Are you kidding me? I mean, what are we talking about? And really, the anti-Semitic piece in there, this isn't about the Jews. This isn't about anti-Semitism. This is about a cultural norm that wants to imply to every single person watching, if you're involved in business, if you're involved in a corporation, if you participate in capitalism, if you participate in a profit-based economy, if you participate in currency, if you participate in a global currency or a global economy, the first thing you must always consider, is it good or bad for business? Good or bad for business as the starting point for our thoughts and thus our words makes us all sellouts. It literally, that is the definition of a sellout. If you will forego the moral, ethic, and ethical considerations in the interest of money, you're a fucking sellout. That's the literal definition. I don't care if you're black, if you're Latino, if you're white, if you're Jewish, if you're German, if you're from Australia, if you're Native American or Inuit. I don't care where you're from. I don't care what you look like. You could live on Mars. You could be some free floating organism that drifted here from some galaxy far, far away. I don't care what you look like. If you're willing to forego the morals, the ethics, and the values in your own heart and soul and in your mind, in the interest of money, solely in the interest of money, explicitly in the interest of money, that would make you a radical materialist. That would make you a sellout. And it's not that we don't all know there's an epidemic of selling out in our culture. There is. I mean, it's obvious, because if there wasn't, there'd be no way we could have gotten to the point we're at now, a hyper-financialized society that's at the push of a button from a bunch of banking elites, or under the thumb of a bunch of banking elites who aren't all Jewish. There are a lot of international Jewish bankers. There are a lot of French international bankers. There are a lot of, a bunch of different types of international bankers. The Chinese are in on the game now. The Americans have been on the game for a long time. We rewrote the whole deal. And if you want to blame the Jews, then you got to take a long look in the mirror, because they're not brokering any deal that you didn't sign. That's why people don't like my podcast, because I don't let anybody hide, right? Right when I get you going on a thread where you think, he's going to create the scapegoat that I'm ready to ride on today. He's going to provide the scapegoat that I'm ready to jump on today. I like where this is going. He's going to blame the Jews. Look in the mirror. Look in the mirror, cocksucker. Look in the mirror. And when I call you a cocksucker, I don't mean to be vulgar or rude. I don't think it's out of place. There's a glory hole where Satan has walked in. There's a brothel, okay? And over the door of the brothel, it says free money. It says, better yet, it says freedom. That's the real catch-22. It says freedom over the doorway. And you walk in, and there's a little special room with a double swinging door, like an old saloon. And there's a wall with a bunch of glory holes. And there's one big, massive glory hole right in the middle. And over the top of it, it says Satan. And he just puts his pipe straight through the glory hole, and you go kneel at it. And then we pretend like we don't know we've kneeled at that glory hole. But we all know. We all know what's wrong. We all know what the problem is. The problem is we have no sacred honor. We have no morals. We have no ethics. We have no values. We are guided by money. We are guided by materialism. We are guided by greed. We are guided by greed and pride and ego. And it all works on one another, right? So I'm not going to let you off the hook, but I am going to explain how this corporatocracy style civilization is now at a place where they don't only say you need to think money first. They actually talk about it as though the cultural expectation is overwhelmingly that way, right? It's like, what do you mean why would you say something that could ever hurt your financial interests? It's the expectation. We've gotten all the way beyond whether there's a genuine debate about morals and ethics and the place for money and the limit on money in determining the overall spiritual, moral, and ethical direction of a people, of a nation, of a state, of a city, of a community, of a family, of a person. We've gone back. We've just drove right past that. We sped past that. There were a few stoplights, a few stop signs, a few yield signs, a few caution signs, a few roundabouts, and we just sped right past them all. And now we're at the place where a man could come on CNBC in front of the entire world, a global broadcast, and just act like it's a foregone conclusion that you should never say anything that would hurt money. I mean, talk about Satan taking a piss. And that's what I mean when I say you're at the glory hole. I mean, Satan's pissing on you through the glory hole. Oh, there's no sexual activity even going on. He's just taking a piss on your head and telling you it's raining. Right? Think of all the people who are invested. And just to be clear, when you're watching CNBC, if you think CNBC is different than MSNBC or different than MSNBC or different than Fox News for that matter, or different than Vice News for that matter, if you think they're different, you just don't understand how the game works. You're the same person who, when I say the word corporatocracy, will go, why do you use such big words? It's the only way to describe it. That's how big the game's gotten. I can only describe infinity with the word infinity. There's no other word for it. It goes forever. The scam goes forever. It runs that deep. I don't know what else to say. We're running out of words to be able to describe the level of the scam. We actually are. Those of us that would like to purport the real news on what's taking place in our civilization, we are running out of words to try and effectually describe what's going on, which is why we often resort to just cussing. Right. Some people will say it shows a lack of intelligence. It shows a lack of intelligence to denigrate one's vocabulary down to foul language, to foul words. You can look at the other way. It actually is the case that we've gotten to a point where the scam is so big, there's no more words for us to use because who hasn't used them before? Everybody's tried to come and tell you what the scam is. We could talk about financial markets. We could talk about crony capitalism. We could talk about communism. We could talk about, philosophical first principles. We could talk about, epistemology. We could go as deep as you want to go. We could use the biggest words you want to use. The bottom line is we only need one word to define the problem. Will. The human will. But that doesn't get the message through. That doesn't have any urgency to it. That even sounds a little academic. That even sounds a little too poetic, a little too intellectualized, right? Because you don't respond to anything anymore other than primal, venial, limbic stimulus. And then you're mad when I call you a jerk off. But they literally took the primal mechanism of the human mind and built social media. That's what they did. And I know you're watching this on social media, but have the balls to understand there's a difference between people who use social media to cut straight through the noise and reach the signal and tell you exactly it's like the Matrix, right? You know, those people who would go, but you're on YouTube, but you're on Instagram, but you're using a camera that came from China, right? Jerk-offs. Right. You're the same type of people that would say Morpheus is morally culpable for freeing minds by using the same source code and jacking into the same matrix that oppresses people. You just don't want there to be any change. You like the Matrix, right? You're like the guy who betrayed them in the first movie. Remember when I used the Matrix? Because now they have loosely nicknamed me Morpheus, right? That's for our fearless audience and our fearless army. I'm loosely nicknamed Morpheus. And Alex Jones even did me the great honor of calling me Morpheus in our interview. That was episode 18. You can only find that on Rumble. Because the real hitters, they don't even let on YouTube, and my time may be short as well, but we'll keep popping back up. You can't silence the truth forever. Guess on YouTube you can, but I digress. As Morpheus, I've been watching. I really didn't even pay that much attention to the Matrix movie, because anytime you start off in artificial intelligence and this sort of Judeo-Buddhist kind of hyper spiritual storyline gets running, I know what the impetus is. So I didn't really pay that much attention to the movies when they first came out. I saw them, obviously, and maybe a couple of times I saw them. But then recently, the newest Matrix movie came out. I think it's the fourth one, right? And they in this movie they rebuilt Neo's body, and after he went to the Machine City, is what I gather from the storyline. They went and they rebuilt his body, but not only him, they went and rebuilt Trinity's body, who had been killed in that ship crash when they flew to the Machine City at the end of movie 3. That was Matrix Revolutions. And they rebuild their bodies, and they actually changed their appearance in the Matrix, so nobody knew who they were. And they've been holding them in these tanks in the Machine City and using them for a power source, because they had an anomaly power source, because Neo was the one. And they find out in this movie, if you haven't seen it, that Trinity is the one as well, right? Kind of this weird little trope to men and women equality. But I digress, right? In the end of the movie, Trinity starts to fly too, and has this real corny line where she goes up or something like that. It was really strange and weird. And the graphics were really bad too, as far as Matrix movies go. And the graphics have gotten much worse since like Matrix Reloaded, what I remember from back in the 2000s. It begs a huge question about Hollywood production. Regardless, I digress. Bottom line is, the guy who I've been going back and becoming familiar with these movies, as you can see, right? Then you go back to the first movie, the guy who betrayed Morpheus and those guys and his crew to the machines. He sat down and he had a dinner with the agent, and he talked about why he was betraying them. And his one request was that he be plugged back in. I thought this was the most profound moment in the entire Matrix saga. That the person who betrayed the very people who were trying to free minds and give them the truth, the one request, was not that he got power in the world outside the Matrix. And that could have been his request. I mean, he could have requested that the machines build him a nice little his own little Zion, right? Zion is the place in the outside the machine world where the humans have come to live underground, because of the post-apocalyptic conditions on the surface are too dangerous for them to live. The air they can't breathe, radiation or whatever the story is. So they all live underground. But some of these cities underground, like Zion, was magnificent, right? I mean, as far as a post-apocalyptic city goes, this thing was pretty high tech. Okay, you got exoskeleton suits that, walk around shooting 50 cal guns from the arms. I mean, this is a place well beyond anything we could imagine now. You got water that recycles itself, and it's just completely an utter pipe dream of technology that they're going to actually try and move to, and they'll stop at nothing to get there. It's even more dangerous consideration. But anyway, he could have asked for a place like Zion, his own little Zion, but he didn't. He didn't ask for that. He asked to be plugged back into the lie. He sat there and he said, I remember the way that steak tasted. He was at a steak dinner in a place inside the Matrix that he knew was fake. He knew it wasn't real. He knew the steak wasn't real. But his whole theory is, what's the difference between it being real and not real if it feels real to me? I mean, the whole thing kind of gets you to ask the question of, what is reality? It gets you to question reality itself. And it sort of preconditions you to take a stance that there's no difference between what is real and what is real. There's only what I perceive. And what is the king of perception? Who is the king of perception? What dictates the perception in modern civilization? The media. That's why I took you down that rabbit hole. I know sometimes it takes me a while. But I don't want to bastardize your mind. I don't want to bastardize your intellect. I don't want to bastardize your humanity. Those who try and talk to you like you're stupid bastardize your humanity. Those who try to talk to you like you're stupid, these are the people who blaspheme against God. These are the people who are really anti-God. And it's true. It sounds harsh, but it's true. And many of us have become sinners. We become anti-God without even knowing it. And that's Satan's greatest trick, right? It's not the outright blatant sin. I mean, that's going to proliferate. But the pathway to a proliferation of unconstrained sin is not the satanic temple. No, they're not at the heart of it. No, it's your DC swamp. They picked the lock. They picked the lock, opened the door, and ushered a bunch of people through, and we all vote for them, and we all let them funnel us into a two-party system, and we all vote no matter what. We go into the booth and we circle D or R, and it's funny. It's funny. It really is funny that the LGBTQ transgender non-binary movement accepts such a binary form of political participation. I mean, the jokes write them fucking selves, guys. If you have even an ounce of integrity, if you have even an ounce of genuine, authentic thought and the balls to speak it, the jokes really write themselves. The non-binary movement is the most binary in human history of their political participation, which we always circle D because, they look after our interests. But it's only D or R. And we actually accept when the uniparty goes out of their way to quash a multi-party political system. Don't let the independents on the debate stages. Don't let the independents or the Green Party or whatever other parties, I don't know who they are. I'm not affirming them. I don't even know anything about their platform. Doesn't really matter to me. Just on general spec, I think the two-party system is corrupt. I think the two-party system is really a uniparty system, a one-party system. And it's not by accident they go out of their way to quash any other parties from being able to participate in any effectual manner. And I only say that because that's how we all signed in to the scam. That's how we all let the sin become proliferated. And there's some people who are pushing back now who didn't understand. There's some people pushing back now who didn't see this coming. They're going, whoa, how did we get here? And you'll see them on social media. These are the people who I tend to agree with. I mean, we agree about how crazy stuff is out there, but their response is always, how did we get here? My response is, where the fuck have you been? What do you mean, how did we get here? We got here through your 501c3 Christians. Your 501c3 Christians, and I'm glad we come to this point, and I talked about Elon Musk and corporatocracy and crony capitalism and selling out, not having any sacred honor, not having morals and ethics and values that you're willing to live by, fight for, and if need be, die for. That makes me an extremist right there. That makes me a domestic terrorist already by the current White House administration. But this ain't about them. They're there to govern. They're there to oversee the proliferation of sin. They're there to oversee the wickedness. They're there to preserve the status quo of wickedness. But they didn't create it. No, you created it. No, and you don't like this podcast because I'll tell you created it. Because I'll put that accountability on us. I created it. I helped create it. I help young men think that if they could just make it to the NBA, if they could just make it to a college basketball stadium and be on television in front of millions of people and be playing in front of 17,000 and perform, that none of their other actions matter. That's the heresy of democracy. If you could get enough people to agree that what you're doing is good, then there is no other consideration. Doesn't matter if it's really good or not. It's about the consensus. Well, one of the consensuses in this country, one of the consensuses in the West comes from our very own Christian community. And herein lies where Satan has played the best, where Satan has been. Don't forget how Christ came into the temple and condemned the Pharisees, the money changers. And that's not a trope about anti-Semitism. I mean, that's not a trope about Jews. That's a trope about prevailing power groups, prevailing groups of people who are in power across any culture or any nationality or any ethnicity. It's a story that was literal to the participants in it, yeah. And the Pharisees were Jews, but you could argue the way Christ described them and the way that Christ called them out, he was really calling them anti-Jews, right? He was saying, you're a Jew, you're saying you believe in my Father, you're saying that you're the protector or the guardian of the Godhead, but really the way you act is in contradiction. But he walked into the temple and brought the harshest criticism upon the elites, the spiritual elites and leaders of his own community. Who are we today? Who is the Christian community today? Who are our Christian leaders today? Forget the Christian leaders. Christians, as a group of people, were supposed to guide the spiritual, moral, and ethical standing of humanity. That's what we were given. That's a grace, that's a charity we were given by God. His only begotten Son showed us the path. He gave us the teachings. Now, our path is not to just sacrifice ourselves or kill ourselves, and that part wasn't for us. That's why Jesus told Peter, who became the first bishop, who became the first pope. This is why Jesus told Peter, you're not going where I'm going, dude. Relax. When he pulled the sword out and cut the Roman, the centurion guard, he cut his ear off on behalf of Jesus. Jesus told him that you're a little overzealous. Listen, Peter, you're not going. I see the enthusiasm. I appreciate the faith, but you're not going where I'm going. And even before it's all said and done, you'll deny me 3 times. And I have an interesting take about that, because if you really look at the story of Peter's denial of Jesus, it validates and it really validates the divinity of Christ and his understanding, that divine understanding. Because had he been so upset with Peter, had he been so wounded by Peter's betrayal, when he rose after the resurrection, why would he have come and spent the time with Peter that he did? No, when he says you're going to deny me 3 times, he was laying out how I understand what's going to happen. I understand what has to happen. I understand what has to happen, and that comes from a divinity, a divine understanding that comes from my Father, that Peter, you can't know or follow. You can't go where I'm going. Keep the faith, but you can't go where I'm going. I'm going to the cross. So that part of it was for Jesus alone. That part of it was for Christ alone. But all the other many teachings were for all of us. And they were for all of us to spread. I mean, this is explicitly why Christ came back after the resurrection and spent time with the people he spent time with that would eventually become the church. Why is it that out of all the Christian teachings, out of all of the Christian ideals, out of all of the Christian beliefs, why is it that using profanity has become the hallmark of Christianity? I'm sorry, not using profanity. Profanity as an idea, profanity in general, has become the hallmark issue of exhibiting your Christianity. And I'm going to tell you how look, this isn't some hypothetical diagnosis here. Let's look at the results. We have a bunch of Christians who have made a bunch of 501c3 Christians, mind you, with your tax exempt status and your conviviality. We have a bunch of 501c3 Christians that hang their hat on Christian faith by way of not using profanity. I mean, that's the fast food hallmark of being a Christian in this country. It's so clear. I can hear it. Oh, I don't cuss. I'm a Christian. I don't cuss. I don't, give me a break. So you got a bunch of Christians who don't use profanity, but you let Luciferians take control of your country. I think I've identified the crisis here. You don't want people to swear. You don't want people to cuss. You don't like the word fuck, shit, ass, whatever. You don't like those words. It's foul language. You can't take the foul language. You can't take the vulgar language. But you can take Luciferians, people who are openly Luciferian, mind you. They're not hiding. You can take Luciferians running your country. Oh, and then let's not make it so grand. They're not just running your country. They're running your state. They're running your city. They're running your local municipality. They're running your school, your child's school. They're running your neighborhood. You ride through a neighborhood and see a Masonic Lodge sign in almost every city. I mean, there's a Masonic Lodge in almost every major city. Openly Luciferian. You got no problem with Luciferians running your life, but you got a problem with people like me who want to tell you the truth and tell you to wake the fuck up. I think I see what the problem is. I have seen the enemy, and the enemy is me. I think I'm very familiar with the problem. And I'm glad to have started a podcast to be able to further diagnose, right? I had to get to the NBA. This has been my path. I had to go through being an athlete, which is why I know that sports is at the height of the scam. Because it's just the peak of idolatry. It's not only the peak of idolatry, it's the peak of Darwin. It's Darwin's greatest arena, professional sports, where science is king, right? And now they're going to start having robot athletes. Oh, wait, that's coming. Wait until they start giving athletes bionic appendages. If you can let a man swim with a woman, it's not going to be long before there's just robot sports. Imagine when the robots play sports. The robot sports are going to be way better than human sports. Are you kidding me? You think it's cool to see a human? Oh, well, being able to relate. You're seeing another human being with flesh and blood, another organic being be able to do things that I can't, is what the appeal is. No, it's not. You jerk-offs right now are watching other people play video games, and what's the difference? I digress. The point of the matter is I had to come through the sports. I had to come through that sports pipeline. I had to come through that sports pipeline. And I had to come through a black community to see those scams. I had to come through and then when the George thing popped off, I had to go to the front line and get my hands right in the shit. When you're a farmer, you got to deal with the manure. You got to know it. You got to know it. See, a lot of you 501c3 Christians, you have this aristocratic, posh, yuppie, neoliberal, neocon, omnisexual, cosmopolitan worldview. And it reflects in your action. It reflects in your daily life. It reflects in your words. You think that you can live a life totally immersed in Luciferianism and not get your hands dirty to create, to clean what needs to be cleaned. I mean, this level of arrogance is almost unfathomable. You cannot get something clean that is dirty without being willing to get dirty yourself. This is why Christ, who came to redeem man, who came to redeem us of our sins, went and spent time with the greatest sinners. You cannot make something clean without getting dirty. The thieves, the robbers, the prostitutes, the homeless. Some of you 501c3 Christians don't want anything to do with the dirt that you've participated in. Some of you don't want anything to do with the dirt that you benefit from. Some of you don't want anything to do with the dirt that you profit from. You just want to continue to cast judgment on the dirty. But nobody's more dirty than you. Nobody's more dirty than the hypocrites. That's what Jesus said. That's why one of the few times that you see Jesus's wrath in the Bible, one of the few times that you see his anger in the Bible is when he came to the temple with the people who were trying to monopolize the Godhead. That's one of the few times you see his wrath. Why? Because he held a special contempt for people who proclaimed to lead the faithful, the spiritual, the good, the righteous, but were actually wicked in spirit. He held them in a special contempt, and he showed it in Scripture. Mr. Scripture, Mrs. Scripture out there, don't use foul language. Go fuck yourself. You don't have to listen to the podcast. That doesn't bother me. Again, I'm not looking for some fake, superficial kumbaya. I should change the podcast name to Hitters Only. I only want hitters to follow me. Because if you're not a hitter, then you following me really doesn't mean anything. It may mean something when it comes to money. It may mean something for advertising dollars. It may mean something for profit, but I'm not a profiteer. Funny, the similarities between the word prophet and the word prophet. Sound the same, spelled different, walk different, talk different. One doesn't talk at all. The other only speaks the truth. Prophet and prophet. Prophets and prophets. I'm not here to appease you. I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear. I'm not here to make it easy to keep coming back. In fact, I'm here to do the exact opposite. I'm here to make it as hard as possible for you to come back. And if at the end, I am fortunate enough to have a vast audience, like the early days of the Christian church, like the early days of the Christian movement, it wasn't Paul and Peter and the other apostles. The message of Christ wasn't easy. It didn't make it easy for you to come back. In fact, in order to follow Christ, it's hard. That's the whole point of it, in fact. So if I'm fortunate enough to have an audience at the end of this, that audience of people are going to be hitters. They're going to be ready to do something. And don't ask me what we're going to do yet. I'm still vetting out whether or not people are even ready. Well, what's the solution? What's the solution? Stop selling out. Let's start there. Let's build block by block. Let's not try to go to the end. Let's not skip steps and go to the end. Everybody wants the solution quick. That's why you were willing to accept science. That's why you were willing to accept technology. That's why you're willing to accept ecto farms. Then I saw a video where they're going to clone. They can clone you now from your skin cells. They can take your skin cells and create a sperm cell and an egg, and then they can clone your exact body from your skin cells. Okay. That's the claim anyway. I don't know if it's true. The fact that they're even thinking about doing this boggles my mind. And listen, I'm not saying that there's not going to be some very practical, useful, valuable place for artificial intelligence and all these other technologies and sciences. What I'm saying is if it's not guided by some type of moral, ethical principle, if there's no sacred honor in the science, you're going to get death. You're going to get chaos. You're going to have catastrophe. That's just all. I mean, don't shit where you eat. Yeah, that's a good guiding principle from Hebrew, from the Bible. Don't shit where you eat. Yeah, now we know 2,000 years later. Imagine this. Trust the science. Trust the science, disregard the Bible. But a basic teaching like don't shit where you eat, these pre-scientific theory folk, these pre-scientific method societies were able to come up with basic wisdoms like don't shit where you eat. And 2,000 years later, in our grandiosity, we come around with these scientific proofs and go, now we know that oral fecal is the number one transmission of viruses. Yeah, little shit particles that get, can I say the word shit in that context? Is that okay with you 501c3 Christians? Can I say the word shit in that context? Okay. Go fuck yourself. Stay at the glory hole. Pretend that you're praying to it. Pretend that you're praying to Christ all you want to. Not working on me. Sorry. Doesn't work over here. Oral fecal, shit. Little particles of shit. Little microscopic particles of shit that transfer viruses. Oral fecal transmission. Number one direct transmission of viruses. Off to, saliva particles too, right? But oral fecal is one of the main transmitters of viruses. Well, they knew that 2,000 years before the scientific method. How do you account for that wisdom? Just a lucky guess, right? Just a lucky guess. Nothing profound from the past. Nothing wise from the past. Nothing wise from our forebears, right? No wisdom in the past. There's no wisdom in the past, but you want to go all the way back to the Big Bang. There's no wisdom from the past, the short history of Christianity or Judaism. Let's even go back 5,000 years, 6,000 years. Christianity, 2,000 years. Judaism, another 3,000 years, probably 6,000 years. There's nothing profound or insightful about Christianity. That's all going to be domestic terrorism now. But we'll go so far back as to create the Big Bang because therein lies the wisdom. Science, money, the four heresies of the West, the scientific method, democracy, computers, and now artificial intelligence. And I'm not saying there's not a place for any of them. In fact, there's a place for all of them. But any of them without moral guidance, any of them without ethical guidance, any of them without sacred honor, just become tools of Satan. It's real simple, guys. Don't shoot the messenger. Don't judge the messenger for the way I give the message. Stop jerking off. Stop buying into the scam. Stop kneeling at the glory hole. Stop finding a scapegoat. Stop finding a reason not to follow the people who you know are speaking beyond the noise and hitting the signal. You 501c3 Christians, you don't fool me, and even more so, you don't intimidate me. Because I'm not looking for your approval. I love when Kanye says, I'm gonna make an album about Jesus. And he's like, what have you been hearing from the Christians? They're gonna be the first ones to judge me. Make it feel like nobody loves me. Man, when you go back and listen to some shit that Kanye says and some of the stuff he's done, the wisdom and insight in it is gonna age so beautiful. I don't agree with everything that he said or even more so how he said it or how he chose to present it. Like I thought what he did on Alex was highly immature and not serious for the. First of all, it was a bastardization of his own ability to actually convey the message he wants to convey. And when he sits down and actually talks for himself in a serious manner, I think he does a great job. So I don't like him. I don't like to see him get too theatrical. I don't like to see any man, especially any black man, especially one who came from the entertainment business, try and be too theatrical in their presentation because it just kind of reflects like a self-doubt of being serious, right? That's just my personal opinion. But Kanye West is leaps and bounds ahead of 99.9% of you out there. That's the reality. What have you been hearing from the Christians? They'll be the first ones to judge me. make it seem like nobody loves me. Huh? I can't end it any better than that today. The corporatocracy owns you. They own your body, they own your energy, they own your mind, and pretty soon, if you're not careful, if you don't repent, if we don't turn the other way, pretty soon they'll own your soul. In fact, they own your soul now. We should all participate. We should all move forward as though they own our soul now, and we have to find redemption. This has been another episode of Please Call Me Crazy, brought to you by Free People Radio. I'm your host, Royce White. Don't die a jerk off. The fight continues, and as always, Godspeed.